Hello everyone, this is Defense Politics Asia, and this is the summary for the day of 290 and 291 for the 10th and 11th of December. So yeah, sorry a bit, today is a bit late on this report, no choice, things happen. So let's start off with NATO allegedly, based on an article by The Times, said that the Pentagon has gave Ukraine the permission to do long-range attack on targets inside Russia after Putin launched many missile strikes on Kiev critical infrastructure. Like as if this is going to change anything. So this is as a result of how Pentagon has revised its threat assessment of the war in Ukraine, and this is allegedly a significant development for this war between Ukraine and Russia, and as such there's a high chance that the United States may supply Kiev with longer range weapons. So yeah, but ultimately it doesn't really change what the Russians are going to do. So this is just an escalation for the sake of escalation. And moving to the southern front, and before I go to the southern front, do check out the open mic session that we just had. It was 5 hours freaking long. So we have an amazing conversation. That's why he managed to drag for so long. But anyway, on the southern front, the Russians have attacked an electrical substation at Maine. So this is Maine. There's an electrical substation over here. Russians used the Garan 2 or the Shahid 136 kamikaze UAV at this substation in the Odessa region, and as such the entire of Odessa have went out of electricity. And this actually it was so bad that it was actually reported across the world, because I saw it in Singapore's news. And over at the Kherson region, over at this, or maybe this island, is not very clear to me. The Big Potemkin is probably this island. There is a fighting reported over at this island, where the Russian forces took out the Ukrainians' recon forces. At least 3 soldiers were reportedly killed, and their bodies fell into the river. So the exact location of fighting is unclear, and this is reported by the pro-Russian source Ryba. Previously, there is some videos, coming out of Ukraine planting some flag on this region here, just across the Kherson city, and the pro-Ukrainians are very happy, saying that the Ukrainians have crossed the Dnipro River, which is kind of like, yeah, whatever. So this shows that there is Russian forces within these islands, or these islets regions along the Dnipro River, and this would mean that there will be some very complicated fighting or decision making required by the Ukrainians, because this is a particularly pointless place to capture, but at the same time the Ukrainians seems to feel like they need to probe this region, sending the recon forces into this region and getting killed. So a bit of conundrum. Over at Crimea, there is a attempted drone strike at Simferopol. Simferopol is this city over here in the middle of Crimea, and there's a drone strike reported. However, the drones were taken out by the Russian air defense systems. So it's a nothing burger in a way. Moving to the Zaporizhia region, at the very end of the Zaporizhia line, over at the Velika Novosilka region, there's fighting reported over at Neshkushny and also at Vremivka. So both is reported on the same day, with the Russians saying that the Ukrainians attempted to attack the Russian positions near Neshkushny, and Ukrainians defense ministry say the Russians attacked over at Vremivka. So not sure what's happening, or maybe they're just exchanging the offensive. So both are very offended by each other. And moving to the Donetsk front, at the Donetsk city, the southwest of Donetsk city, the Ukrainians continue their offensive. Fighting is reported at Shevchenko, Volodymyrivka, and at Soloke. This this fighting was reported on the 10th, and there is information coming out on the 11th by SITREP maps that the Russian forces have withdrawn away from this entire region here. So previously they have already pushed very close to this road just off Vuhledar, and the Ukrainians have launched the sustained counteroffensive, and as a result the Russian lines have been pushed back to this new line that I've indicated, closer to Vuhledar as well as halfway towards Solotke. So fighting continues to be raging, and the Ukrainians are really putting a sustained offensive in this direction. Over at Marinka, the Russian forces are continuing their slow push through this forever fighting city over on the western side of Donetsk, and there is also fighting reported over at Krasnohorivka. Over at the Pisky region, we have some information coming from Ryber that there is fighting over at Pervomaisky and Vuhledar, but based on some information coming out from, I think, Wargonzo or SITREP maps, they say that the fighting here is extremely slow. In fact, SITREP maps mapping, they only map the Russian advance to only here. Whereas my mapping is already here based on pro-Russian sources. So, believe whatever you want to believe. It doesn't really matter. Over at the Avdiivka region, I have updated the map to this line. This new border or front line is as per the mapping by Deep State UA. So it's a pro-Ukrainian source, and the Deep State UA listed Kruta Balka as under Russian control. As such, I have moved the front line back. Once upon a time, I actually put Kruta Balka as under Russian control. Then somehow, based on a piece of information, I have moved the front line to include Kruta Balka as under Ukrainian control. And ever since, there was never any reports of any fighting around this region, so it was very hard to verify any information. However, Deep State UA mentioned that there is fighting on the eastern side of Avdiivka for several days, and the fighting was so bad that the Ukrainian forces have basically no means of communicating with the outside world. They say that there is practically no connection from there because the guys were busy repelling attacks around the clock. So as such, we have information now that there is fighting on the eastern side of Avdiivka. This is the first time we have a clear indication where the fighting at Avdiivka actually is. So the current front line looks a bit like this, where the Ukrainians are holding the western side of this road, this highway over here, and the Russians are holding on the other side, except for this area because there is actually a defensive entrenchment around here. So the Ukrainians seems to have control over this region here because of the entrenchment here. The Russians doesn't seem to have overcome this entrenchment on the northeastern side of Avdiivka region. So as you see again, you see this is a very heavily entrenched position. And you might see that, oh, this might not be anything, but look at the tree. The tree, this was size of a tree. A person is just probably a footstop. And imagine the footstop running around this line. If your sergeant punish you to go one round around the entrenchment, I think you'll be very fit at the end of it. Moving to the NiuYork region, there is a new development over in New York. According to the Ukrainian Defense Ministry, they reported fighting over at Avdiivka or Avdiivka. This is the first time we have seen fighting being mentioned over at this town south of New York, and this actually kind of breaks the perception that fighting is still quite far away from the New York City itself. But to mention fighting over at Avdiivka may suggest the front line is a lot higher than this. And another significance is that you can see that the pre-war entrenchment is all along the eastern side, but the fighting is now on the rear side of this line of entrenchment, which means that the Russians have totally kind of went around this entrenchment, and they are now fighting just south of New York. So the Russians could literally just not fight this entire entrenchment around on the eastern side of New York, but just go straight for New York, or even go to the rear by capturing Sukha-Balka. So the front line here is not very clear. We have information of fighting at Oleksandropil, at Karamik, at Novokalinove previously. Sometimes we also have report of fighting over at Novobakhmutivka. But this is the very first time we have seen fighting at Yurivka. And it's something to take note of. Or could it be just another one-off? We're not so sure. So let's check. Let's continue to take note of this New York front. This New York front is looking more and more like a very interesting front to check out. And this looks like a very weird shaped horse. Like, this is a horse, the front leg and the rear leg with a very thick tail. Like a kindergarten drawing. Looks rather cool actually. And moving to the Bakhmut front. So this is Bakhmut city. At the southern side of Bakhmut front, there is fighting reported over at Avdiivka on the 11th, with the Wagner private military contractors continue to push in the southern part of Bakhmut. And reinforcement was reported today actually, according to Russian source Ryba, where there is a reinforcement from the 3rd Battalion of the 28th Separate Mechanized Brigade of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, being sent over to Klishivka all the way to Torres. This entire line of defense is being reinforced by forces coming over from the Kherson front. So this is something interesting to note. Fighting also is continuing to be reported over at Opaine on the 11th, and there is continuous fighting over at Bakhmut in the southeastern part of Bakhmut city on the 10th and on the 11th. Interesting development over on the eastern side of Bakhmut was that, according to Suryak maps, the entire industrial zone over here, which the Ukrainians proudly recaptured, has been recaptured by the Russian forces. So the Russian forces have recaptured over this industrial zone, and the Suryak maps have been really specific. They said that the Russians and the Donetsk People's Republic forces have captured the Signac factory and the sparkling wine plant. So this is the Signac plant, and however, this is probably a furniture plant, because this is actually the winery. But anyway, this is the winery, you see. So they say that this is the winery. So no, this is a bit of a confusion on this side. As you can see, there is a Google icon of the winery here. So this is actually not the winery. For what we understand, this is actually a furniture factory. But anyway, we will continue to monitor the situation over here. But as such, the Patricia Lumumbi Street is now the industrial zone is now back in Russian control, at least based on the information from Suryak maps. And there is information that fighting is now raging, according to Suryak maps, over at this forest region in the northeastern part of Bakhmut. So this Bakhmut city, in this forested area, the fighting is now raging within this forested area here. The Russians are tightening the noose around Bakhmut, it seems. And there is fighting reported at Pihorodne on the 10th and on the 11th. On the 10th, it was reported by the Ukrainian Defense Ministry, and on the 11th, it was reported by Wargonzo. So the Russians are continuing to push over in the northern part of Bakhmut, and continuing this pincer that I have described. If you do not know what I mentioned, do check out DPA War channel. Go and find the video where I mentioned about the Russian strategy for the Bakhmut front. And there is reinforcement over at Paraskovievka. So at Paraskovievka, the Ukrainian forces have reinforced this place with forces coming from the Zaporizhia direction. So the forces, previously I mentioned there was a significant build-up of forces over at the Zaporizhia line, with the Ukrainians really want to go on an offensive. However, we have rumors or intel saying that the Ukrainian forces over at this region here has been redeployed over to the Donetsk front, and this is the first clearer indication coming from Ryba that there is information of the 128 Mountain Assault Brigade being redeployed over to the Paraskovievka region. And over at the Vuhledar region, fighting continued to rage over at Vuhledar on the 10th and on the 11th, but Muske only witnessed fighting reported on the 10th only. However, fighting continued to be going on here. The front line doesn't seem to have changed much, so nothing much to say. And the clearing up operation over at Yakovlivka is a question mark. Not sure how clean is the village now. I wonder if they use vacuum cleaner. But the deep state UA, the pro-Ukrainian source, considered that Yakovlivka is under Russian control. In their mapping, they have turned the Yakovlivka as red, as under Russian control. So I have pushed the Ukrainian front line backwards in reaction, but I have not given the flag of Yakovlivka to Russian side. I'm still waiting for someone to know to give me the information that this clearly captured by the Russian forces. And over the Sivers front, there is fighting reported at Bilohorivka, according to the Ukrainian Defense Ministry, on the 11th. And then there is no fighting at Sperne. I suspect that Sperne has been captured by the Russian forces. This is just my suspicion. And fighting is actually most heavily being fought over at Verkhnokanyamsky on the 10th and on the 11th. Both information coming from the Ukrainian Defense Ministry. In case the pro-Ukrainian crowd don't listen to what I say, it's a pro-Ukrainian crowd. This is from the Ukrainian Defense Ministry information. In fact, half the information has been from the Ukrainian Defense Ministry. So, if I'm pro-Russian, then you are a Russian troll too. And there's fighting reported over in the region of Serebryanka. And there is also heavy fighting over at Bilohorivka on the 10th and on the 11th. On the 10th, it was reported by the Ukrainian Defense Ministry. On the 11th, it was reported by Ryba. And according to Ryba, they said that the Ukrainian forces have partially withdrew over to Serebryanka due to heavy losses. So this, take it with a pinch of salt, is definitely not a mass withdrawal, because if it is, Ryba would definitely mention it as is. But they did say that part of the Ukrainian units withdrew. So partial withdrawal, maybe to regroup. And moving to the Crimea front. The Crimea front is starting to get very interesting. There is fighting reported in the Serebryanskoye forestry. Basically, this entire forestry here, where they actually chop off a lot of trees for lumber. You can see all the holes. Both the Russian Defense Ministry and the Ukrainian Defense Ministry reported fighting over in this forested area on the 11th. On the 11th, there is fighting within this forested area. No clear indication where exactly the fighting is, but it's just in the forest. And there is fighting reported towards Dibrova on the 10th and on the 11th, both by the Russian Defense Ministry. So the Ukrainians are not just fighting within the forested area, but they are trying to push and recapture Dibrova. According to the Russian Defense Ministry, the first day they said that it was actually a counterattack by foreign mercenary, and on the 11th it was just recon forces and mortar crews. So very interesting what's happening over in the Crimea front. And the Russians continue to also do their push in the Liman direction. Exactly where we are not so sure. I'm suspecting is the road pushing towards Toske and Zarishne. But on the 10th and the 11th, both is what there was report by the Russian Defense Ministry of them having some success in their offensive in the so-called selected regions. But over at Crimea, further up north, in the northwest of Crimea, there is fighting reported on the 10th that the Russians were attacking on Chervonopopivka as well as Zhishlivka. Both are information coming from the Ukrainian Defense Ministry, where they reported the Russians were attacking. But on the 11th, the Russian Defense Ministry actually reported that the Ukrainians are now counterattacking, and the Russians have to use artillery fire and active troops actions, which is kind of a weird way to put fighting or defending. So the Russians actively, make the Ukrainians want to not attack, and so heavy fighting continues to rage over in this Chervonopopivka region, and there is fighting reported between Nevsky and Ploshchanka, according to Ryber, where the Ukrainian infantry attacked the grounds between Nevsky and Ploshchanka, and then they entered into a rifle battle, and then again Russian artillery forced the Ukrainians to give up the fight over here. And over at Ploshchanka, the similar situation persists, just like in Chervonopopivka, where the Russians were attacking on the 10th, and on the 11th the Ukrainian counterattack. So they continue to exchange offensive, and on 10th, the Ukrainians were reportedly sending reinforcement over the Ploshchanka region. So this is probably the reason why on the 11th they are able to do this counteroffensive. So very fluid situation over here. And on the 11th, there is fighting reported at Avdiivka. So this is also another indication where the attack towards Ploshchanka seems to be a salient. Is about towards the eastern direction, whereas the Russian positions are closer to Nevsky and Avdiivka. So it just have a pimple of sort appearing over at Ploshchanka. Too chunky, you might have pimples. Don't be so fat. And over at Sviatove region, a very interesting report came out from Ryber. They say that at Darishny, there is fighting reported here where the Russian forces discover Ukrainian recon in the area of Darishny, just west of Sviatove. This Sviatove, very, very near. So, and as a result, they actually fought the Ukrainian forces, or the Ukrainian recon reportedly was defeated, and then they actually disappear into the forest region, which is why the mapping looks like this now. And this is actually very surprising, because the Ukrainians seems to have bypassed Palatakivka as well as Nuzurishny. They just secretly, quietly move towards Sviatove. However, unfortunately, they were discovered over at Darishny, and fighting caused them to just have to melt into the forest. So we will continue to watch to see whether this this beautiful long lake here will continue to persist over here, or will it be totally chopped off and sell to the chicken rice store. And over at the Avdiivka region, according to the Ukrainian Defense Ministry, there is fighting over here, and there is a Ukrainian offensive on the 11th towards Kolomichiha. Oh my god, this I always have problem with this name. And however, the offensive seems to be not effective. Then the Russians were attacking Stemakivka, according to the Ukrainian Defense Ministry over here. And there is fighting over at Novoselivsky on the 10th, according to the Ukrainian Defense Ministry, where the Russians were attacking the Ukrainian positions around the region over here of Novoselivsky. Who is actually controlling Novoselivsky is still unclear. Is pretty much listed as gray zone by many of these OSINT, or open source intelligence. And there is shelling reported in the area of Kromalny. So at Kromalny, the Russian Defense Ministry said that they have launched a artillery strike on the accumulation of Ukrainian forces near this region here. So this may suggest that the Ukrainian lines might be a bit more correct, but maybe also not so correct. Not sure who is actually controlling the town. It was not really mentioned. The same happened over near the region of Avdiivka, as well as near the region near the town of Khyslivka. So all these locations, shelling was reported by the Russian Defense Ministry to destroy concentration of Ukrainian forces. And moving to the Kupiansk region, there is heavy bombardment over at Sinkivka on the 10th and on the 11th, where the Ukrainian concentration of forces were destroyed to prevent an offensive by the Ukrainian forces in this direction. And there's nothing over at the Kharkiv front, and that's all. So this is the summary for the day of 290 and 291 for the 10th and 11th of December. If you like this report, or I don't say this report, but like this type of report, do subscribe, do press the like button, share this with your contacts, your friends, and whoever that might be interested in this. And if you have anything to tell me, you can put it in the comments. I may or may not read it, but it helps to increase engagement. Maybe it helps to reach more people. So anyway, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next update.